Hello everyone and welcome. Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, and Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 remastered in HD are coming to Nintendo Switch. Most of these are coming this holiday. At least, this is the headline we have seen on countless articles and videos coming from multiple sources. The most reliable of which, and the source of the most recent leak, is Jeff Grubb, who, we will see in a moment, actually does have a great track record of being correct when it comes to leaks like this. So does that mean this one is true as well? We will cover everything we know, the really long list of leaks he has gotten correct in the past, what he has gotten wrong, and more. So let's get started with the most recent Zelda and Metroid rumors and leaks. Jeff has been mentioning all of these games and others for the past few years. The latest he said about Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD is back in May of this year, where he answered a question from a viewer stating, "They want to have a Zelda thing every year. They've been holding on to this. Why wouldn't they just put it out this year? And if they don't put this out, or some other Zelda this year, instead of just waiting for Breath of the Wild 2, I just will not understand." I do think this game, as much as it was a joke in the Mega 64 video, I do believe it does actually come out in October. I think we get that in October. I think we get a Metroid Prime remaster in November, and I think we get Advance Wars 1 and 2 in December. So if this is his most recent comment on Zelda, how does it line up with what he said in the past? In June 2021, around the time of Nintendo's big direct, he stated, "I think we're not getting Wind Waker and Twilight Princess for Zelda 35th because Nintendo isn't sure if we'll get Breath of the Wild 2 in 2022, which as we know now, ended up being true. It was delayed until 2023. So if it needs a Zelda thing next summer/fall, it's good to have that in reserve. Still, that's weird." I am not pretending to have perfect insight into Nintendo, but this lines up with the company's recent strategy of holding these kinds of games even after they're ready. Pikmin 3 Deluxe was done for months before we got it. A few months before this, during the February Direct where Skyward Sword HD was announced, he stated, "The first consideration when it comes to the timing of a Zelda anniversary is Mario. Nintendo's 35th anniversary celebration for Super Mario is still ongoing. It's unlikely that Nintendo would want celebrations for Zelda and Mario to overlap. It would get more from each if it put some separation between the two events. This is still marketing. And for the record, we have a video here that covers every single thing that Nintendo announced and released for Zelda's 35th anniversary. It was just spread out across the entire year as opposed to all being announced and released at the same time. And while you may hear people saying Nintendo forgot about Zelda's 35th anniversary and they didn't do anything for it, if you watch this video, I promise you, they actually did a lot. It just all wasn't announced in one big direct. He continues, "This is still marketing, and Nintendo will want to position The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD out in front. This is one of the biggest reasons that Nintendo didn't talk about other Zelda beyond Skyward Sword HD in its latest direct video event. The company doesn't want other Zelda games to distract from its attempt to bring back Skyward Sword. This is something Daniel and I said on our Hylian Gamescast. It could have released Wind Waker and Twilight Princess at the same time, but the company wants Zelda fans all focused on Skyward Sword. So instead of creating a situation where other Zelda releases on Switch cannibalize sales that could have gone to Skyward Sword, Nintendo will create a steady cadence of releases to celebrate the series. That will start with Skyward Sword HD in July, but we should hear about what is coming after that this summer. Obviously, we know nothing happened last summer, but again, it does seem like Nintendo actually planned out a lot. I don't know why they just didn't go through with their big direct. Even the Zelda series celebration they had planned with Amazon still went through in July, which was when I was expecting their big direct. A few days before this quote, he said, "A Zelda HD collection was never going to happen. My poor Zelda fans," and this is something Daniel and I agreed with, it was never going to be a collection. Like, come on. They would simply make too much money selling them individually for $60, as they did with Skyward Sword and Link's Awakening. Even Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD were both at full price on the Wii U. So anytime you heard someone talking about an HD collection, like Marky Mark, just ignore that. It's just never going to happen. Unless Nintendo's just feeling really, really generous. If almost every single port, deluxe edition, special edition, remaster, whatever that they brought to the Switch from the 3DS or the Wii U ended up being full price, you can guarantee a game as big as The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker or Twilight Princess would also be full price. He continues, they've HD updated most of those games already, and will almost sell them all separately. Maybe a 2D handheld collection. Yes, I think a 2D handheld collection would be more likely than Wind Waker and Twilight Princess together, but I don't think it would be the Oracle series or Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks on the same cartridge for $60. I think it would be each game individually for full price or close to it, and then a collection that you could buy them together with somewhat of a discount, similar to how they release Pokemon games. So you could still buy the collection of them together, but it's not going to be the price of one full game. It'll be like $100 instead of $120. I think that's the route they would go with. So all of this was the same time another source people trust, Andy Robinson, claimed to 100% know Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD would both be announced in 2021. Obviously, that didn't happen, but he gave an update after the E3 conference saying, update on this. For everyone who's now flooding my mentions, predicting dates is a fool's game, and I should have never used 100% in the original tweet. Zelda fans, sit tight. We obviously have a few other leakers who have said these games were coming at different points, most of which were people who are almost always proven to be wrong, unlike Jeff Grubb, but instead of talking about them, we're going to try to focus only on with his track record at the end. Now, what about Metroid Prime? He had that mention earlier, but one of the first mentions that I could find was in July of 2021 on a 𝗍𝗵𝗲 podcast where he states, the game is done and Nintendo is holding it. I think Metroid Prime Trilogy is done and whether or not Nintendo releases it now or later depends on other factors. I think that game is sitting in their pockets for whenever Nintendo decides it's the right time. And Nintendo's done this a lot recently, so it's not unusual. It's not a sign of some bad thing happening, it's not a sign of a lack of faith in Metroid. Nintendo can afford to sit on it, and that's how they're treating it. I think a big problem for Nintendo for quite some time was during the pandemic was Q&A. I think Nintendo was focusing its quality assurance resource on one or two big projects at a time, and that meant that some games that were basically finished were sitting on the side. While they had their lockdown, secure QA processes focused on one or two more important games, Japan is still dealing with these issues, so I don't think those processes are going to happen up anytime soon. The other factor for Metroid Prime Trilogy is that it's definitely going to be a marketing beat for Metroid Prime 4, almost certainly. So right now we're getting Metroid Dread this year, and then I imagine that Metroid Prime Trilogy is something they'll release close to the release of Metroid Prime 4, whenever that is. This was followed up with another spot on 𝗍𝗵𝗲 in September, where, when retweeting his appearance, he said, I forgot to talk about Metroid. I think that Nintendo will re-release Metroid Prime 1 on Switch instead of Trilogy. It has been working on this for years, and when I first heard, everyone including me assumed it was the Trilogy. He replied underneath his retweet saying, Emily Rogers mentioned this, and I went back to look into it, and I think she's right. Emily Rogers being another leaker who a lot of people trust and has gotten a lot right, but she has had some wrong. Imran Khan, who is an editor at Fanbyte Media and former senior editor at Game Informer, so he would obviously have some inside knowledge and contact with people in the industry. He replied saying, I am starting to think this as well, which is a pretty big blow for me personally, but I also think 2 and 3 are still coming as simpler remasters. Jeff added, I agree, they're just going to capitalize on the Metroid Prime anniversary, and then they'll probably get 2 and 3 after that. That seems to be the way it is trending. Most recently, in June, he said, I can say that I've been told pretty definitively that Metroid Prime Remastered is going to be one of their big holiday games. In the past, this is something I've heard is in the works. They've had things happening with that game. Now it's like I've been told that their plans are to release that game this holiday. I think almost certainly to line up with the 20th anniversary in November. That's happening, and they need to tell us when that release date is. He then moved on to talk about Prime 2 and 3, saying, the other scoop here is that those games are also coming. They're also pretty much done, it sounds like, but Nintendo being Nintendo is going to hold on to them and will likely drop them later along the road. However Nintendo decides and what order to release their games, they are going to do that. But they are going to do it separately, it sounds like. And Metroid Prime 1, my understanding, is that's getting the big remaster treatment. And then Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 are sort of getting, they'll probably get like updated controls and things like that, but they're not getting quite the same overhaul that Metroid Prime 1 is getting. That's almost everything. I'm sure I'm missing something, but this was an example of what he has said about Zelda and Metroid remasters coming to Switch. So what do you believe? Do you think we will see them? The more I think Nintendo would rather have them released for the Switch 2 or whatever their next console is, as a way to help give it a big push and give us a few Zelda and Metroid games closer to its launch. Especially while we wait on whatever the successor to Breath of the Wild 2 will be, whether it be Breath of the Wild 3 or something completely new and original, which Nintendo has came out multiple times and stated how they are worried on how they will market or promote their next console. Should we believe him though? Well, this is his track record put together by 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 off a few of them. You can find it yourself and go through the full thing if you would like. Some of these are very, very specific, while others are a little vague, and they have sources here for everything as well. Nintendo Direct in March 2020. There are a couple of things he got right here from EA, one being Mass Effect remasters. He's pretty much got the entire events with dates and some of the reveals last year's summer. There are lots of things he got right in this thread. Feel free to dive in. Source. It's very long, and I'll mention things from this thread, but I'll probably miss some claims. Pikmin 3 Deluxe, PlayStation 5 reveals in June. Xbox rumors like Fable are very likely to be true. I don't have the timestamps, but he says it in this video. More EA games coming to Steam with accurate dates. Battlefield 2042, 6 on that date is modern setting. Blackout is going to return in some form with Black Ops this year. Ratchet & Clank. Also, it's kind of weird, but lots of games he said here turned out to be true, so I'm thinking he had some information and just wanted to troll some people, but you may pass this one. UFC is coming, duh. EA will continue to make golf games, Need for Speed. Elden Ring won't be at Xbox Games Showcase on July 23rd. No Elden Ring at Gamescom 2020. Nintendo Direct in August 2020. EA Play and Game Pass merge. Nintendo Direct September 2020. Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Forza Horizon 5 coming before Forza Motorsports and coming in 2021. Elden Ring won't be at TGA. Microsoft Bethesda Roundtable event with an exact date. And the very small list of things that were compiled that he got wrong. He said Joseph Fares' new game announcement should be close in May, and it got revealed in December, so they counted this as wrong. He didn't mention if Obsidian in his What to Expect from Xbox Games Showcase event, but 𝗏𝗏 was there, so I'm counting it as wrong, but there are also true claims in this article. Xbox Live Gold going away in 1 month. He got Elden Ring reveal dates wrong 3 times. There was something related to Star Wars games at Game Pass, which turned out to be wrong, but I can't find it. So you can go through the list here. You can see there's a tiny list of things put together that he was wrong about, while he has a massive list of things that he had correct. Please like, subscribe, and if you really want to help support us, go check out our Patreon page, where you can get a lot of great benefits and help be a part of the show. If you have any questions you would like for us to answer, or news and topics you would like us to discuss in a video or our podcast, you can leave them below in the comments, and we will get to as many as we can. And if you are a Patreon supporter, we will guarantee that your answer is moved to the top of the list to be answered or discussed first on our podcast, which happens every Thursday at 9:30 Eastern or 6:30 Pacific. Thank you to Riker1 Tramel Shefford, someone whose name is only donated to hear Jesse speak my name and then didn't give me his name. Gene Pinna, Disappointment, Joseph Stewart, ZAIN JIWANI, SOBERX, Mr. Monocled Metroid, David Guthman, Zoe M, Natsu, Jesse Wood, 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, Ashton, Justin Clark, Candy, Chad Costin, Blargnar, Monica Spath, Lovable Christie, and Gus Calvo. I apologize if I got some of your names wrong. Please comment below, or you can message me directly to correct how I pronounced your name. Thank you all for your support, and I hope these videos keep entertaining everyone.